Hello, and greetings to you all watching these videos, which is about a new publication on the subject of territories of life. For me, this is a wonderful subject, and I must confess that this is the third time that I'm recording this video because I get enthusiastic, I go into the details, and soon enough I'm going over the minutes assigned. So this time I will go as fast as possible. I will not explain anything. I will just give you a teaser of what you can find in the book. So I apologize in advance, but I'll try to really go fast. So I'll share my screen if I can. Here is the book I'm talking about. Here is the cover. The title is Territories of Life, Exploring Vitality of Governance for Conserved and Protected Areas. It is available as a PDF. It is in press, but not yet out. It will soon be available also in Spanish and French. And here is the download that I will also show later. The topics: territories of life, vitality of governance, custodian self-determination, not the usual topics for a CBD COP. Imagine you were 30 years ago at the CBD COP, if there was one. Management was the key words. Governance, it took us about 10 years to start discussing it, in particular diversity and quality of governance, which allowed to think about systems of protected areas, conservation in the landscape, including voluntary and ancillary conservation, and then in Nagoya at COP10, protected and conserved areas. 4 years later in Sydney, vitality of governance at the World Parks Congress, and thereon custodianship and territories of life. These last 10 years are the subjects of the topics of the book. 10 years ago, governance was already well understood. Processes by which decisions are made for protected areas, for conserved areas, and implemented, and efforts are made to ensure that the decisions are respected. Diversity of governance, who takes decisions? Quality of governance, how are the decisions taken? But other questions were important and less explored. For instance, for how long has the institution been functioning? And is it functioning with excellency, with meaning, inspiring society, or is it apathetic and boring? Has it been evolving, responding to changes in the context? For how long is going to remain able to function and to evolve? All this was discussed at the Sydney World Parks Congress under the thematic area of vitality of governance. Buzzwords, life, because vitality comes from Latin vita, which means life. Change, because everything that is alive changes. Meaning, because with life and change, you really want to understand meaning with regard to conserved and protected areas. So this was our working definition. The vitality of governance is the capacity to function through time, fully in inspiring ways, and the capacity to evolve. And since then, I've taken as my privilege really to try to learn as much as possible together with many other wonderful colleagues about vitality of governance and more. So where did we learn from? We started learning from history, prehistory, and the history of traditional communities on the land. Mobile communities, foragers, pastoralists, shifting cultivators, settled community like a monastic institution or communities governing their commons. And their results, their environment are often today considered conserved areas, but they are not the only one. Protected areas, only in the last 100 years or so, basically, state governments have established protected areas. We have about 30 case examples of protected and conserved areas described in this publication, and many more looked through the lenses of, anthropology, political ecology, and so on. What did we find? We found 5 characteristics often associated with governance vitality. I'm not going to tell you about these characteristics because I want you to look into the book, but I will tell you that there is a need for some motivation and energy for a governance institution to really function well and inspire others in society. So there is a need for purpose, usually biological purpose, some meaning, usually theoretical meanings, including conservation of biodiversity, and plenty of emotions. All this conundrum of motivations are fundamental for vitality, but they cannot ensure vitality. And that's also something that you can find in the book. Where do we find the essence of vitality? Exceptionally strong motivation and energy in something we understand as custodianship, which is the collective intergenerational bond that ties together a community and its territory of life. This is really filled with emotion, with knowledge, attention, care, love. And it is really the difference between heritage and property. Heritage is part of the identity and autonomy of a people. Property, you buy and sell, you don't give a damn about it. Something even better about custodianship is that in many ways, it is able to identify and define territories of life, because custodianship produces a territory of life as much as a territory of life keeps a custodian alive and keeps the livelihood of the people together through time. As you know, territories of life are collectively governed, managed, and conserved by their custodians, and they are the heart of cultures throughout the world. But not everything has been rosy about custodianship and territories of life. In the last centuries, colonialism, neo-colonialism, and development have had tremendous impact upon cultures and upon their environment, not last through militarism and through the killing of many defenders of the environment and the rights of people. This is what in the book I call the clash between the custodians of territories of life and the hubris, the arrogance of modernity. And the result, a tremendous loss of biological and cultural diversity. Let me just talk about two elements of this clash. The first is being long invisible, the custodianship, even among some eminent scholars of conservation. So community conservation has been discovered by international policy only in the last 50 years. And in the book, you'll find a chronology of events, policy decisions, and publications, including UN decision, IUCN resolutions, CBD decisions, the struggles of indigenous peoples, even the creation of the ICCA Consortium that is producing this book, or the development and support of the Global Support Initiative to ICCAs that is also sponsoring this book. Another element that you'll find there is that something instead has become increasingly visible, which is the commercialization of nature. And don't tell me. This major financial resources, you'll find it, are injected into conservation and including community conservation. And this could be an excellent opportunity for the communities and for the custodians. It can also be a case of death. And what's the difference between the two? Well, the difference, as we recall in the book, is made by the strength of the community. The whole difference is made by the strength of the community. In the book, there is much else. We try to understand governance institutional systems, comparing vitality with resilience, sustainability, other germane concepts. If you are a member of a governing body of a conserved or protected areas, you can be interested in methodology and tools to self-assess vitality, and even with ideas about to enhance vitalities. If you are a policymakers, you may find ideas for policies in support of custodianships and territories of life, and not just by giving money, but securing something more important for custodians. And then there is a lexicon, which is fairly innovative, and so on. So at the end of the day, if you believe, like me and many others involved in the development of this publication, if you believe that territories of life are important, and it is important to sustain and regenerate as many of them as possible, you may want to put your energy and act to do two things. First, support, and actually, if you are part of the custodian communities, come up with some endogenous self-strengthening, what indigenous scholars like Jeff Korntassel or Sutej Hugu call resurgence, decolonization, self-determination. But if you are not from the community, but from the other remaining parts of society, policies that recognize and support custodianship and that promote social, environmental, and climate justice are essential, because only the combination of this self-strengthening and recognizing policies can ensure the vitality of governance for territories of life in the future. I would like to thank you very much for your interest. I'm not sure how many minutes I've done it, but I hope they are within what was allowed to me. And this is the download. And now I'm going to stop sharing and say that I'm really sorry not to be there, because the fun starts at the end of a presentation, and you now will have fun, discussing, I hope. And I'm not there. Please send me emails, but Terence, I'm sure, will be there and able to answer all your questions. And so thank you so much for listening to this, and sorry for the rush.